Through 1910, the state of California continued to rely heavily on revenue from a statewide property tax to finance its schools. It was only after 1910, at the same time that the state lawmakers were also working on a construct of segregating schools for Mexican-American children, that district level property tax began to assume a prominent role it long played in other states. So as the increase of the Mexican and Mexican-American population, it got converted from a statewide property tax to one based on local property wealth. The early state leaders of California's public schools at the start of the American occupation also advanced a project of racial discrimination by restricting access to state revenue for common schools to children deemed white. Under the terms of the Treaty of Guadalupe, former Mexican nationals living in lands ceded to the United States were technically deemed white and considered American citizens. At the same time, American racial ideology cast Mexicans as a hybrid race, and many Mexican communities were not deemed white during this period. As Bottoms explains, Californios occupied an ambiguous position in the state's racial hierarchy. In 1855, policymakers changed state law to stipulate that state funds could only be provided to white pupils. Given American racial ideology, these provisions could be used to prevent children with Mexican ancestry from receiving access to education funding from the state. While it is impossible to determine precisely how many children with families from Mexico were counted as white or non-white, some lawmakers interpreted the law to mean that children with Mexican ancestry no longer received a share of state common school funding. In addition, lawmakers also marginalized Spanish-speaking children of Mexican ancestry by mandating that the state public schools not be instructed in Spanish after 1855. These policymakers viewed these early restrictions on state funding as necessary for the creation of a segregated school system for whites and non-whites, pupils, and in turn, the colonization of California. One commentator even described segregating schooling as the secret of Britain's success as a colonizing power.